Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of China Update, where we discuss leading political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. And first up, more than 2 years after dismantling its stringent pandemic-era controls, China has reintroduced some of those measures in southern Guangdong province in response to a major outbreak of the mosquito-borne Chikungunya virus. The city of Foshan has recorded over 6,500 cases in less than a month, prompting local authorities to take action reminiscent of the zero COVID days. To curb the spread of the virus, Foshan has mandated pharmacies to collect the identities of individuals purchasing any of 47 medications associated with chikungunya symptoms such as fever, rash, and joint pain. Mass testing has resumed in certain districts, along with requirements for recent travel history disclosures and community-wide disinfection campaigns. These steps have sparked anxiety, fear, and even ridicule on Chinese social media, where users dubbed the response a quote, return to 2020, end quote, and a, quote, familiar formula, end quote. Although authorities have not imposed lockdowns, the aggressive approach has rekindled memories of the sweeping COVID-19 measures, which devastated the Chinese economy, a devastation for which the economy is still recovering, which included mandatory testing, quarantine camps, and digital health codes that restricted movement of hundreds of millions of people. Health experts have questioned the relevance of COVID-style interventions for a mosquito-borne illness. Quote, outbreak control should focus on vector management and reducing human-mosquito contact, end quote, said Donal Bastancio, a senior epidemiologist with RTI International, rather than on measures meant for person-to-person transmission. Kang Min, director of the Guangdong CDC's Institute of Infectious Disease Prevention and Control, said the outbreak appears to be stabilizing, but warned that international travel and the ongoing flood season complicate prevention efforts. Foshan launched a 7-day mosquito eradication campaign, including disinfection drives, promotion of window screens and mosquito nets, and community engagement to eliminate stagnant water. Businesses that fail to comply face fines of up to 1,000 yuan, $139. In hard-hit Lecong town, residents underwent 3 days of mass testing, and some villages encouraged synchronized mosquito coil use. First identified in Africa, Tanzania I believe, in 1952, chikungunya is relatively new to China, with the first imported case reported in 2008. While most infections are mild, the scale of the outbreak and revival of restrictive measures have raised public concern about potential disruptions to daily life. The response has extended beyond Foshan too. Cities like Fuzhou and Quanzhou in Fujian province have ordered travelers from Foshan to undergo 14 days of self-monitoring. Shenzhen has implemented similar advisories, urging residents to report symptoms and recent travel. Although chikungunya isn't spread person to person, mosquitoes can carry the virus from infected individuals to others, making prompt and effective vector control critical. Next up, as US-China trade negotiations continue, the technology war rages on. The latest flashpoint centers on Nvidia's H20 chips, a less advanced product approved for Chinese buyers after US barred sales of its flagship AI processors like the H100 and B200. Chinese regulators summoned Nvidia representatives last week, citing potential national security concerns tied to proposals from US lawmakers to mandate traceability in high-end chips. While no formal ban has been announced, analysts suggest the move is more about signaling than security. Quote, the recent summons of Nvidia serves as a warning for Nvidia's future products, end quote, said George Chen of the Asia Group. Beijing is sending a message to domestic firms to remain cautious and to the global market that the US approach to chip surveillance could carry unacceptable risks. Some critics of Beijing's approach have pointed out that if China is sincere in saying that it imports these chips for non-military uses, then traceability of these chips should not be connected to national security concerns. Nevertheless, in Beijing, the issue has gained urgency amid reports that US officials are considering software or hardware-based location verification mechanisms in AI chips to better enforce export controls. Nvidia strongly rejected the idea of backdoors in a blog post this week, warning they would undermine trust and open the door to cyber threats. The stakes are rising as the US doubles down on enforcement. This week, 2 Chinese nationals were charged with smuggling Nvidia's H100 chips to China in violation of export restrictions. The Justice Department said the defendants used a California-based shell company, ALX Solutions, to send shipments through Singapore and Malaysia, allegedly disguising their ultimate destination. If convicted, they face up to 20 years in prison. Despite these pressures, the US has shown some flexibility. US President Donald Trump recently allowed Nvidia to resume H20 chip sales to China, prompting criticism from hawkish lawmakers, but welcomed by companies like China's ByteDance and Tencent, who had already stocked up on the chips. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick defended the move as a strategic choice to keep Chinese developers dependent on US technology. For Beijing, the Nvidia case serves as both leverage in trade negotiations and a rallying point for self-reliance. Shares of domestic chip makers like SMIC jumped after news of the regulatory summons, signaling investor confidence in homegrown alternatives, or at the very least the market belief that China will double down on domestic manufacturing efforts. Quote, China wants the H20, but it's also using this moment to strengthen its position, end quote, said analyst Tilly Jung. Whether the US pushes forward with chip tracking mandates may hinge on the outcome of the full summit between US and Chinese leaders. For now, both sides appear intent on walking a tightrope, where trade, technology, and national security are increasingly entangled. Now, if you want to be on top of the biggest developments related to China generally and the US-China Cold War specifically, this is a conflict that is shaping our world as we move into this new era of confrontation. Consider subscribing to China Update. Hit the bell notification icon and you will be. If you're getting some value from today's episode, don't forget the like button. And for those who want to help keep the channel financially sustainable, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. I rely on you, the audience, to keep these episodes independent, free, and open for all. And so this is a tremendous help as well. Thank you so much, everyone, for the ongoing support. Let's continue. Yesterday, Peking University Professor of Finance Michael Pettis published an article called Using China's Central Government Balance Sheet to Clean Up Local Government Debt is a Bad Idea. We often quote Pettis on this channel. He's one of the leading Western voices when it comes to China's financial and fiscal system. There are other major voices that disagree with him, but I've often found that he has a brilliant way of articulating China's fiscal and financial challenges in an accurate and digestible manner. Let's end today's video by unpacking some of his ideas in this latest article from yesterday. Many of these themes will be very familiar to regular viewers of China Update. In this piece, Pettis presents a detailed analysis of China's growing debt burden and its implications, emphasizing that the true problem is not the debt itself, but the systemic misallocation of resources and the hidden economic losses it reflects. As of mid-2025, China's total social financing, a broad measure of credit, stood at 430.2 trillion RMB, up 8.9% year-on-year, while nominal GDP grew only 4.1%. This divergence pushed China's debt-to-GDP ratio officially from 103% at the end of 2024 to 309% 6 months later. Although China's debt level is extremely high, especially for a middle-income country, Pettis argues that a financial crisis is unlikely due to Beijing's control over the financial system and its ability to restructure liabilities at will. However, this ability to stave off financial crises masks a deeper issue: large-scale, unrecognized losses hidden in balance sheets across the country. These losses stem from years of excessive and increasingly unproductive investment, often made to meet political growth targets. Instead of being written down, these investments are carried at cost, artificially inflating asset values, reported income, and GDP figures. Pettis compares this to capitalizing expenses, turning economic losses into fictitious assets. This pattern began around 2006 through 2008, when China's debt started rising faster than GDP, a break from previous years where productive investment ensured the two moved in tandem. As losses remain unacknowledged, they accumulated across local governments and state-connected entities, particularly in infrastructure, real estate, and manufacturing sectors. Some propose transferring local government debt to the central government to ease financial pressures and sustain growth. Pettis criticizes this approach on 3 grounds. It delays the necessary recognition of losses, merely shifts debt servicing costs without reducing the systemic burden, and risks weakening the central government's balance sheet, the only major clean one left. Once that is compromised, China will have have far fewer tools to manage future disruptions. Pettis argues that losses must eventually be recognized and allocated. This can happen either proactively through policy choices that distribute the pain in a controlled manner, or reactively through market forces once the system can no longer roll over debt. The latter route, he warns, would be far more disruptive, generating uncertainty, financial distress, and volatility, both economic and political, as different sectors scramble to avoid absorbing the losses. To resolve the debt problem, China must revalue its overstated assets and accept the economic consequences, which would be very painful. While this will depress reported GDP and wealth, it is a necessary step to restore credibility and sustainable growth. Pettis concludes that Beijing still has policy space to act, but not indefinitely. The real challenge lies in allocating the inevitable losses in ways that minimize long-term damage to the economy and social stability. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a good Thursday, and I will see you for this week's final episode tomorrow.